were able to reach us. So today the briefing will cover also the interest, Minister, of our country as far as global issues are concerned. My name is William Baloy. I will then introduce our sign language interpreter, Leandra May, who's on the extreme left, captured on the camera. Joining also the minister in the presidency, it's our acting DG for GCIS. We are taking this post-cabinet briefing live from Cape Town. Minister, let me invite you to take us through. Thank you.
I guess there was a cue for me to speak very slowly. Thank you, Brawili. Good morning, colleagues. This is the post-cabinet statement of the cabinet meeting that took place yesterday, Wednesday, the 25th of June, 2025, on the issues from the environment, on the national dialogue-related matters. We start with the 70 years of the Freedom Charter. On this day, 70 years ago, that is the 26th of June, 1955, more than 3,000 delegates from various racial and social backgrounds gathered in Kliptown, Johannesburg, to envision the South Africa they want, that is democratic and non-racial, and which is based on the principles of equality, social justice, human rights, and a shared economic prosperity. The Freedom Charter was a result of a massive grassroots campaign involving various anti-apartheid organizations and ordinary citizens, organized under the banner of the African National Congress, reflecting on their collective aspirations for a free and a just South Africa. The Freedom Charter is the foundational document to the constitution of the post-apartheid South Africa, and it is still relevant in directing the redress of outstanding social and economic inequalities that still prevails in our country. On the National Convention towards the National Dialogue, 70 years after the adoption of the Freedom Charter, and acknowledging that the challenges still facing our country require meaningful input from all of us, South Africans from all walks of life are invited to participate in a national dialogue that will determine the future of the South Africa we want. Like the adoption of the Freedom Charter, the national dialogue will follow an extensive consultation process, including at district and provincial levels. Cabinet has noted public concerns about the estimated budget for the national dialogue and wish to clarify that the proposed budget has not yet been taken through the established government budgeting processes or considered by the IMC that is chaired by the Deputy President, and Cabinet is fully cognizant of the current fiscal constraints facing our country and has directed the IMC to ensure prudence on the funding of the national dialogue. On matters of the economy, the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan, Cabinet welcomes the launch of the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan to drive localized manufacturing, skills development, and create jobs in the country. SARE, which was approved by Cabinet in March this year, aims to support the local demand for renewable energy and drive industrial development while ensuring a just energy transition. The $1.5 billion development policy loan agreement, Cabinet was updated on the $1.5 billion development policy loan agreement signed between the South African government and the World Bank that will be used to ensure inclusive economic growth and job creation. The loan is aligned with the National Treasury's principles that forms part of government's broader efforts to implement structural reforms and will be used to unlock key infrastructure bottlenecks, particularly in the energy and freight and transport sectors. The loan support is anchored on 3 pillars of the structural reforms that are improving energy security, in enhancing the efficiency and competitiveness of the freight transport services, and supporting South Africa's transition towards a low-carbon economy, which are a backbone of government's priority of inclusive growth and job creation. On the arrival of foot and mouth vaccines, disease vaccines, Cabinet welcomes the arrival of the much-needed vaccines sourced from Botswana to combat the foot and mouth disease (FMD) outbreak in certain parts of the country. The vaccines are being distributed and administered free of charge to the affected areas, especially in the provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape, and those farms in other provinces where the disease has been identified. A second batch of vaccines is in order with the Botswana Vaccine Institute. On international relations, the G7 summit. President Ramaphosa attended the G7 summit, and South Africa views the G7 as a strategic partner. President Ramaphosa used the opportunity of the G7 to urge for greater cooperation between the G7 countries and the G20 country, and also to mobilize support for reforms in the international institutions of global governance, such as the United Nations Security Council and the global financial system. The President's participation in the G7 clearly points out that South Africa does not hold an anti-West policy position, but we are ready to work with everyone to pursue South Africa's national interests and to advance the African agenda. On the Russia working visit, Deputy President Paul Mashatile concluded a working visit to Russia, where he also participated in the 28th St. Petersburg International Economic Forum 2025. The visit served a focus on enhancing economic cooperation between the two countries in sectors such as agriculture, automotive, energy and mining, as well as science and technology. The Israel and Iran conflict. Cabinet is deeply concerned about the escalation of hostilities between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran, along with airstrikes by the United States of America. The ongoing attacks by both countries has led to loss of lives, casualties, and destruction of property. Cabinet calls for an urgent de-escalation of hostilities, restraint, and full compliance with international law by all parties to prevent further human suffering. Cabinet further calls on the USA, Israel, and Iran to create room for constructive dialogue and give the United Nations the opportunity to lead the peaceful resolution of dispute, including the inspection and verification of Iran's status on uranium enrichment, as well as its broader nuclear capacity. The world cannot afford the balkanization of Iran. By its sheer size of its population, geographic location, and mineral resources. As a continent, we in Africa are still suffering the consequences of the balkanization of Libya, 14 years later after the Libyan regime change, with the escalation of terrorism across the continent that are also crystallized because of the instability in Libya. We need a peaceful and a global society. Therefore, we need to find peaceful resolution to any conflict. Concerns about Haiti's worsening situation. Cabinet is concerned about Haiti's worsening situation and assess that a multifaceted approach is needed to strengthen governance, improving law enforcement, and promoting economic development through regional and international cooperation, prioritizing Haitian interests. The view of Cabinet on the High Court interdicting the burial of the late 6th President of Zambia, Mr. Edgar Lungu. Cabinet has noted the judgment of the High Court of Pretoria interdicting the burial of the late President Lungu in South Africa after mutual agreement by the parties. Cabinet urges both the Lungu family and the government of Zambia to use the opportunity granted by the High Court to find each other to ensure a dignified burial of the late president in accordance with the honors befitting a state president. On SAMI DRC withdrawal from Eastern DRC, Cabinet was updated on the phased arrival of South African National Defense Force troops from the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo following the SADC decision to terminate the SAMI DRC mission intervention. About 1,718 SANDF troops have now arrived in the country, and more are expected to arrive over the next few weeks. Cabinet reaffirmed South Africa's continued commitment to a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Southern African region and commended the efforts of the SANDF troops to contribute towards restoring peace, security, and stability in the DRC. On matters related to justice and crime prevention, starting with safety and security, government welcomes the progress being made in the fight against crime through initiatives such as Operation Shanyela and Operation Valomgodi. About 239 suspects were arrested across the country between the 1st and the 15th of June 2025 through Operation Valomgodi. The suspects were arrested for illegal mining-related offenses and various other crimes that included attempted murder, possession of unlicensed firearms, possession of unpolished diamonds, unlawful possession of explosives, and contravention of the Immigration Act of 2002. Operation Valomgodi has, since its inception in December 2023, led to the arrest of more than 27,000 suspects and the seizure of more than 600 firearms that included imitation firearms and 16,000 rounds of ammunition. Between 16 June to 22 June 2025, South African Police Service, through Operation Shanyela, arrested 15,372 suspects. Some of the key arrests included 2,400 wanted individuals linked to serious and violent crimes, which are murder, attempted murder, rape, and robbery. 159 arrested for murder, 100 arrested for rape, 1,173 arrests for assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, 2,602 for drug possession, and 64 for hijacking. And hit of Nosipho Nomdudu Mfani of Kwanokutula, who was 23 years old, who had a mental disability. The pair, Boneli Msila and Monde Chemese, were each sentenced to life imprisonment for conspiracy to commit murder and life for the murder which they committed for financial gain related to funeral policy payouts totaling 600,000. On the fight against GBVF, which is a gender-based violence and femicide, Cabinet has directed the Department of Social Development to expedite the finalization of the Victim Support Bill to strengthen the fight against GBVF. Social and human development, related matters, floods recovery. I'm sure you have followed the Eastern Cape briefing on this matter, and I do not want to contradict what they have updated now, so I'll skip this portion because we could not get their statement in time to synchronize the information. But the briefing from the Eastern Cape government was detailed, and they continue to work, being supported by the National Disaster Management Center, because you are aware the area has been declared a national disaster. On severe weather, and we are pleading with South Africans to listen carefully, and that's why we are repeating the weather warnings or the weather alerts from the the weather services of South Africa. The South African Weather Service has warned that an intense cold front is expected to make landfall yesterday, Wednesday, 25th June 2025, over the southwestern parts of South Africa. There is a chance of heavy rainfall with a risk of localized flooding over the western parts of the Western Cape, especially in low-lying and poorly drained areas on Wednesday into Thursday, 25 and 26 June 2025. I'm sure those of us who are here have witnessed that yesterday and today. Strong and gusty wind over the interior may cause localized damage to structures and uproot trees. Furthermore, cold to very cold conditions can be expected, along with possible snowfall over the western mountain ranges of the Western Cape, spreading into the southwestern interior of the Northern Cape. Strong and possibly damaging winds are expected across most parts of the Eastern Cape on Thursday, which is today, the 26th of June 2025, along with a drop in daytime temperatures. So we are urging all South Africans to take care of themselves Where you can avoid travel, so that we are all remain safe. And those in the Eastern Cape who are already affected by the floods, the government departments are making sure that those who are in place of safeties and holding places are kept warm and safe and protected from the next round of the inclement weather. On governance, on the Presidential eThekwini Working Group progress, Cabinet was updated on the workings of the Presidential eThekwini Working Group. Progress has been noted in water and sanitation. A funding package of 378 million rands has been secured to assist with reducing significant water loss, which coincides with a 30% reduction in sewer and water repair backlogs. Domestic travel to eThekwini is also on the rebound, increasing by 33% year on year and contributing over 17.4 billion rands in economic value. International tourist arrivals also rose by 9.8%, bringing in 3.3 billion rands in the eThekwini area. We are hoping to achieve the same success with the Presidential Working Group on the city of Johannesburg. Updates to Cabinet. Progress on implementation of the President's response to the recommendations of the State of Capture Commission. Cabinet was briefed about the substantial progress made on the implementation of the recommendations of the State of Capture Commission. The key highlights include asset recovery linked to the state capture increased from 2.9 billion in October 2022 to 11 billion by March 2025. The overall target is to recover almost 50 billion rands when the implementation is concluded. Major reforms, which include the enactment of 8 new laws addressing corruption, procurement, intelligence services, and corporate accountability, has been achieved. Criminal investigations and prosecutions. 4 State Capture Commission cases have been concluded, all with guilty verdicts. 11 other cases involving 51 natural persons and 27 companies are enrolled in court. Professional and regulatory actions. The erstwhile Department of Public Enterprise referred 71 former SOE directors to the CIPC for delinquency proceedings, resulting in 9 active court cases. Corporate accountability. The CIPC has completed reviews for 10 private sector entities implicated in the state capture report, with 6 investigations ongoing and 8 new SIU referrals under assessment. National Treasury imposed a 10-year, which ranges from 2022 to 2032, ban on Bain and Co. on doing business with the state, which Bain is challenging in court. Various reforms to prevent future state capture are underway, while some have been implemented. Amongst those implemented is the establishment of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, which commenced its operations on 19th August 2024, and the National Framework towards the implementation of the professionalization of the public sector was approved by Cabinet in October 2022. And the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council has concluded research into the institutional reform recommendations of the State of Capture Commission. Preparations for the G20 summit, and these are the G20 meetings as we build up to the G20 summit. Cabinet received an update about work underway as the country prepares to host the G20 Leaders Summit, as a number of meetings continue to take place, and the following have taken place. Preparations are underway to host the Y20, the South Africa Summit, later this year under the auspices of the South Africa's G20 presidency. And preparations for this summit and Y20 South Africa pre-summit that will bring together delegates from the G20 member states and beyond to start discussing policy positions to inform a Y20, which is the Youth 20 communique, and the main G20 leaders summit at the end of the year was held from the 18th to the 19th of June 2025. Other meetings held in June include the third Task Force 1 meeting, Inclusive Economic Growth, Industrialization, Employment, and Reduce Inequality, held virtually from 18 to 19 June 2025, which deliberated on developing frameworks for aligning macroeconomic, sectoral, labor market, social protection, and environmental policies behind the shared objectives of creating decent work and reducing inequalities. The T20 South Africa's midterm conference held virtually from the 19th to the 20th of June 2025 that assessed progress on the 5 thematic task forces, deepened cross-regional collaboration, and refined policy outputs ahead of the G20 Leaders Summit. The G20 Empowerment Alliance Inception meeting held from the 20th to the 21st of June 2025, and this discussed the G20 Empowerment Alliance strategic pillars of women leadership, entrepreneurial support, and sustainable economic development. The SAI 20 Summit, which was a gathering of auditors general from G20 members, held in Johannesburg from the 24th to the 25th of June 2025, which discussed issues relating to transparency and accountability in the management of public finances. Cabinet further received a briefing on the recently held Sherpa track meetings, as well as coordination and preparation efforts being undertaken for the forthcoming negotiations of the G20 ministerial outcome documents and declaration. Cabinet was informed that 69 meetings have been held so far out of the 132 planned official G20 meetings. The third G20 Sherpa meeting is taking place in Sun City from yesterday, 25th, to tomorrow, 27th June 2025, and is expected to receive feedback from the finance track task forces, review G20 key commitments and targets, as well as to discuss ways to ensure the G20 is able to coordinate global responses to crisis. Cabinet decisions: the integrated energy industrial intervention to revive South Africa's ferrochrome industry competitiveness. Cabinet was updated about the socio-economic impact of the continued decline of the ferrochrome industry and the urgent need for government industry intervention to stem the decline. Cabinet approved that the Department of Electricity and Energy finalize a government industry agreement for tariff realignment in support of the ferrochrome sector, as well as the restoration of South Africa's industrialization and beneficiation capacity in the sector. Cabinet approved the placement of chrome ore under export control, which will require exports to obtain the International Trade Administration Commission or ITEC permitting. And Cabinet approved the initiative to develop a chrome ore export tax and expand the Special Economic Zone or SEZ smelters incentives framework or regulations. On the Waste Economy Master Plan, Cabinet approved the publication of the Waste Economy Master Plan for implementation. The master plan focuses on waste reduction, recycling, and recovery, particularly for packaging waste. It seeks to maximize the contribution of the waste economy to the country's broader economy while reducing the negative environmental and health impacts of chemicals and waste in the environment. The master plan proposes several interventions that will unlock and promote economic opportunities within the waste economy value chains through, among others, expanding exports and creating jobs. About 60,000 informal jobs have been supported nationally through waste pickers' participation in waste collection. This started in the 6th administration. Sorting and recycling waste such as paper, plastic, and glass. It is anticipated that the additional jobs being created will benefit women, youth, and people with disabilities. On bills, the South African Police Service Amendment Bill 2025, Cabinet approved the submission of the draft South African Police Service Amendment Bill to Parliament. The draft bill aims to amend the SAPS Act of 1995 in order to establish a legal framework for policing which contributes to the effective and efficient combating of crime. The amendment bill ensures alignment to the Constitution of South Africa of 1996, the National Development Plan, the White Paper on Policing of 2016, White Paper on Safety and Security of 2016, and the Community Policing Policy and the Policy on a Single Police Service. On appointments, all appointments are subject to the verification of qualifications and the relevant security clearances. Advocate Mkateko Joyce Maluleke, her contract has been extended as the Director General in the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability for a period of 5 months. Mr. Brian Munakadi has been appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of the Rail Safety Regulator. Ms. Doris Dondo has been appointed to fill the board vacancy at the Air Traffic and Navigation Services Board. Cabinet approved the appointment of the Board of Trustees of the Independent Development Trust, who are Ms. Zimbini Hill, Ms. Lerato Mahutazo Kumalo, Professor Stella Vuma, Mr. Wayne Stewart Mante, Dr. Dienandelin Connor, Mr. Neil Jensen, Ms. Sikadi Peyane Shakane, Ms. Tobile Buhlebetu Maluka, Professor Raymond Nkando, and Ms. Bongekile Zulu. Cabinet also approved the appointment of members of the Industrial Development Corporation Board, who are Dr. Gloria Tomato Sirobe as the chair, Mr. Ron Barnett, Mr. Sam Bembe, Ms. Tanya Rieva Cohen, Ms. Ayanda Dlodlo, Dr. Nomusa Dube Ngube, Dr. Kitumezi Mutibedi, and Dr. Sidney Mufamati. On events and upcoming events, as we close off Youth Month celebrations, Cabinet has reaffirmed the call by President Ramaphosa for businesses and other public sector entities to use sayouth.mobi to provide more ongoing pathways for young people to earn and learn. There are now over 4.7 million young people registered on the platform and the Department of Employment and Labor's Employment Services database. Through these platforms, young people have been supported to access over 1.4 million earning opportunities. Cabinet calls on businesses to give young people a helping hand by providing employment opportunities and investing in education and skills development. On messages, we start with condolences. Cabinet expressed its condolences to the friends and families of the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the University of Walter Sisulu, Professor Sinetemba Mpambane, who was shot and killed in his vehicle at the university's Enkululweni facility. Legendary sports commentator and presenter Phumlani Msibi, who was famously known for his iconic signature question, "Thoughts Please," when conducting his post-match football interviews. Trumpeter and flugelhorn artist Fezile Feya Faku, who had an illustrious career that spanned across 5 continents and who collaborated with legends such as Abdul Ibrahim and Bekim Selok. On congratulations, Cabinet extended its congratulations and well wishes to the Proteas. Let me start again. The Proteas for defeating Australia in the World Test Championships final and thereby claiming the prestigious ICC World Test Championship title for the first time in such a long time. And my captain, Themba Bavu. Their magnificent victory against all the odds has brought joy to our nation and shown the power of sport to unite and foster social cohesion and nation building. We also extend our congratulations to Laura Seathal, popularly known as Tyler. I think it's just in the water, people, for both hosting the 2025 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards and becoming the first African artist to win the Favorite Global Music Star Award at the 2025 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards held in the USA. Veteran actress Leleti Kumalo and film producer Anat Singh, who won the prestigious Golden Knife Award in the Special Creation category for the film Don't Give Up at the 64th Monte Carlo Television Festival. The film is directed by Daryl James Ruot. I think we are missing out on the athletes, and I'll need an update on the athletes for the last week. I think those boys have been and girls have been showing us flame. There is a girl I know particularly, but we'll update as we respond to the questions. As we mark the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, we wish to remind all South Africans that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the statement. Let me start by inviting questions from the Cape Town Imbizo Center, and thereafter we will go to those that are posted online. The drill will be the same. Please will press the red button next to you and introduce yourself, and then we can go to the question. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Minister. Paul Declarter from Bloomberg. This morning is local media report that the President is looking at reshuffling cabinet and at least one deputy minister has been informed and is going to be removed. Do you know anything about this? Can we expect a cabinet reshuffle statement soon? And then secondly, yesterday the Minister of Mineral and Energy alluded to that cabinet will be briefed or has been briefed on policy regarding fracking in the Karoo. Has the cabinet been briefed, or are you still waiting for the briefing? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. Another one. Thank you. Minister, I'm not sure if we should take the few that are online for you to proceed, as they seem to be similar. No, thank you very much. Let us then invite Nandi to give us the online questions for the record.
Good morning, Minister. We have two questions on the shuttling, coming from Simon IOL and Dennis Becker from Net24. Then I'll proceed. The other question is coming from Azata Karen from Amapongani.
Nandi,
Yesterday, Gungube
Nandi,
electric.
I think you need to read those questions for the record. Yeah.
Um, First question came from Simon here from IOL. Can the minister confirm a report of a possible cabinet reshuffle? Thank you. The next one came from Dennis Delpo. There are reports that President Cyril Ramaphosa is planning to reshuffle his cabinet. Can you confirm, and when can we expect this reshuffle? Next question is from Sharon from Bulletin. The cold front and severe weather warnings are concerning, especially following the recent devastating floods in KZN and the Eastern Cape. Is the government adequately prepared to shelter and support vulnerable communities this winter? Azata Karim from Amabulani. Yesterday, Khumbudzo tweeted that it is the moral obligation of public figures to clarify to the society when their friends or relatives are doing business with the state. As such, has Deputy President Paul Mashatile declared his sister-in-law's involvement in the company awarded the recent lotto license, and has this matter been discussed in Cabinet? The last question is divided into 3 questions, Minister. It comes from Karen Duplessis from Africa Report. The current cabinet is almost celebrating its first birthday. How have things been different for you in this GNU cabinet in the past year compared to the previous years that you served in cabinet? What's the 1 or 2 biggest things that have changed? Second question. Following on Azara's question above, has the Deputy President given any explanation or feedback to Cabinet for his sister-in-law's involvement in the company awarded the recent lotto license? And has Minister Pascal given any feedback to Cabinet on this as the Minister overseeing license? Last part of the question, I've been trying to establish if there are any ministers in cabinet living with disability out of the 22 ministers. Are there any? The last question is about reshuffling coming from Kanom Maseko from Business Day. Will President Ramaphosa announce a cabinet reshuffle anytime soon, including the reshuffle of a deputy minister? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nandi. Minister, those were the questions that we have on the record. And unless if there will be follow-up from the House, but maybe, Minister, at the end, you might also round up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. Let me start with the easy one. There's a saying that Turkey have no say on Christmas. Meaning that I'm a minister. If there's a reshuffle, I'm equally affected. So I will not know whether there's a reshuffle or not until I'm called to say you are being reshuffled. In terms of the Constitution of the Republic, the President exercises power in 2 forms. There's the power that he exercises collectively with his cabinet, and there's a power that he exercises alone as the president. The decision to appoint, and I don't know whether it's a correct word, to disappoint, or to remove, or to reshuffle ministers and deputy ministers, that's the sole prerogative of the president. He exercised that without consulting anyone, but that is his sole decision. So I cannot answer the question on the reshuffle, as I cannot answer the question of who is being reshuffled, who's being appointed, who's being removed. I have no such power. I have no such authority. I'm just take, and if cabinet appointments are Christmas, I'm precluded from talking about Christmas. I will not even know whether in the turkeys within the what do they call, the coop, whether I'll be part of the turkey that is chosen to be eaten in that Christmas. So it's a very difficult question for me to respond to. On whether Minister Nkabane has explained herself to cabinet, ministers explain their conduct to the president. You are aware that the minister has submitted a report to the president, and it's for the president to make a determination of that report and discuss with the minister his views. So we leave it there. Minister has continued to engage. The minister has continued to engage with the portfolio committee of higher education and training to explain herself and the work that she has done, and would like to leave it there. On the declaration of interest, by not only the deputy president, by all of us, government, both at the executive level and also in parliament, they provide a system and a process of declaring our interests. Some of those interests are declared publicly, or they're declared privately. And therefore, it's not the duty of cabinet to discuss the declarations of individual members of cabinet, except when we declare an interest on an item that is being discussed in cabinet or in a cabinet committee, that we have, we either know somebody, or we have knowledge, or we've got an extended relationship with the matter that is being discussed. That's when those interests are. But the interests of who has business interests where and whatever else, that is done in the disclosures of interest of members, both members of the executive. We've got one that is managed by the Director General in the presidency, but we also have another which is managed by Parliament. On the fracking, whether cabinet has been updated around the fracking in the Karoo. Indeed, cabinet has been updated about the fracking in the Karoo. The department and the relevant entities continue to do work to make sure that should we decide to proceed with the fracking, we do it in a manner that protects the environment, but also in the economic interest of the country, given the abundance of gas in the Karoo. On the issue around Cocta, the infrastructure damage, and making sure that the amounts get used appropriately. You have indicated that the Minister of Finance have already flagged that there's inflation of the food parcels. The Minister of Finance and the teams and the disaster management teams were able to flag that because we are watching closely to make sure that there is no abuse of the money and resources directed at those. You'll recall that last week the water mafias had stopped Gift of the Givers from distributing water for free, and we intervened in the very area to make sure that there is no misuse of resources, and where there are those donations or charity organizations that are donating, they are not prevented. So there will not be an abuse of those resources, because the teams that are managing are directly focused on making sure that the resources go to the right places. It's not only about the resources going to the right places, it's also that the resources availed are used expeditiously. Because you recall there are those who have suffered floods and who remain in shelters instead of going into houses that have been provided, and the speed of delivery of those, to make sure that people go back to decent life, have been done. We also commend the work that has been done through the Department of Home Affairs, and the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs was there to make sure that the things that can be replaced immediately, like birth certificates, could be pre-printed and be given, and things like the ID documents, that they get assisted to get the ID documents expeditiously so that they can start to go back to normalcy, given those important documents. You referred to the trips to the US. Maybe let me start around the question of disability. in South Africa we have a definition of disability, but there are people who do not want to declare themselves disabled, but they live with disabilities. So I would want to move and not answer that question specifically, because there are a number of colleagues who may qualify to be classified as people living with a disability. But if they've not designated themselves as such or declared themselves as such, I don't want to be the one that says this is the number and it's because this and this one are in this category and whatever. Because there will be a debate about my own ability to see. I would not want to classify myself as technically blind, but my ophthalmologist may hold a different view about that. So I would not want to respond to that question, because it's also whether people have declared themselves as such. We can go back and check the records to say have they declared themselves as that. And I'm sure majority of you have experienced me against light and all those instances when I've requested that we reduce the lighting because of what it does to my eyes. But I've not classified myself as disabled, just for the record, so that you don't go and say Khumbudzo says she's disabled. On the issue of the delegations going to the US, there's nothing wrong with the delegations going to the US or any other country for that matter. Political parties can send delegations to whichever country they wish to go to. What is important is that they do not go there and denigrate the sovereignty of this country and do not undermine the policies of this country. As I've indicated, quoting from the Freedom Charter, from what our forebears envisioned, they envision a South Africa that belongs to all who live in it, black and white. It means whether you are an Afrikaner, whether you are a Muzulu, whether you are a Mosotho, Motswana, Movenda, Motsonga, Mopedi, Mxhosa, and I know they're going to fight me, but collectively just allow me to use Xhosa as a dominant grouping. I know you've got also, whether you are a Mxhosa or whether you are Malay South African, whether you are Indian South African, whether you are a colored South African, you belong to South Africa, and any contribution you want to make, you must make to contribute to this country. Again, as envisioned by our forebears 70 years ago, they envisioned a country where the wealth of this country must be shared by all those who work it. That envisioning meant that you need to, as a government, after over 300 years of colonialization, and also the apartheid discriminatory laws that prevented the development of the black majority in their country of their own birth, and prevented them access to economic opportunities, that you need to be deliberate to what you call redress, to make sure you create conditions that will allow South Africans who were previously excluded for over 300 years from economic participation in their own land, which has impacted generations and generations, can also have a footing in and play a meaningful role, not as hewers of wood, of collectors of water, but and not as workers and laborers, cheap laborers, but as owners of the means of production. You need to create economic conditions and create legislations and laws and policies that will enable them to participate meaningfully. Because South Africa will never be free and will never be peaceful unless all of us are equal. And equality does not mean just the right to vote. It means access to all opportunities equally so. Not based on the color of your skin, not based on your social background, but based on the effort that you've made to earn a living and to contribute to building this economy. So yes, Afrikaners are welcome, and they are part of South Africa. They are South Africans. They are the white part of the South Africans, like the other whites who are not Afrikaners, who continue to contribute to the development and economic prosperity of this country, who continue to contribute to the uplifting of the fellow South Africans who were previously excluded from economic opportunities. Then there was the question around the GNU, what do you call it, anniversary. And it sounded like it was a person directed to me personally, unless I got it wrong. That it was asking about how have things been different for you in this GNU cabinet in the past year compared to the previous years that you have served in cabinet? Was there one or two biggest things that have changed? Don't hold cabinet to this, and I'm just indulging you. What has changed is that you had to experience that our colleagues experience that it's easy to be in the opposition than to be in government. Because when you're in opposition, your job is to criticize. When you're in government, your job is to find solutions to the challenges facing the country. And that realization made quite an impact for all of us. And the commitment for all of us within the government of national unity to find solutions. If you have learned, a number of governments have fallen, coalition governments have fallen in their first year or through the budget. We almost went there. But in the nature of South Africa and our resourcefulness, we worked ourselves back. It didn't matter whether we managed to get budget 3.0. This afternoon we go and vote on the DORA without a fear of, if you don't make it there, with one vote is very critical. We are now all agreed on the budget, but also all agreed on what it means, the budget 3.0 for all of us and the work that still needs to be done. And where we are, personally, it's also an interesting one because we challenge each other about the pace of implementation. In the first year, we had to deal with a lot of DA minister this, DA minister this, and we had to clarify there's no DA minister, it's a government minister. We're now getting over that minister of this party, minister of that party. We are now moving towards working as government, accepting that the wins of one is the wins of all. And also accepting that there's no one department that is insular from the others. There's no one department that can work outside the support of others. For instance, I saw a poster that one minister is going to reduce the cost of what. And I said, but that cannot be true. There is an interdepartmental team set up to work on the cost of living. And they're looking, each department are looking at various cost factors, and they'll come together and bring a proposal to cabinet on what are the interventions we must make to reduce the cost of living of South Africans. But it has been a great experience. And also we have had to learn to say, how do you do the consultation? How do you strengthen the mechanisms of engaging, both formally in cabinet and outside government? But what I can assure all of you is that decisions in cabinet have never been on a vote, they've been on a consensus to show the solidarity, the solidness of cabinet, and that we are governed by the Constitution of the Republic that provides for us. So it has been a great experience, as much as my first term in cabinet or in the 6th administration was a great experience, being mentored by leaders who have been, ministers who have been senior, guiding us. So we had the benefit of ministers who have been senior, who guided us to say, no, Minister, that's not how you do things. This is how you do things. And it didn't have to come to the public platforms, the differences. I'm sure you have seen me many a times calling back colleagues to say, that's not how it's done. But we had the benefit of being called in closed doors to say, no, that's not how it's done. This is how it's done. If you want to achieve it, do it this way. But it has been marvelous work that we're doing, but we know that we are different parties. Next year in the by-elections, we continue to contest each other. We win, some we lose, but all of us are committed to making sure that we grow South Africa. But in our different parties, we are committed to make sure that our parties gain total victory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Ms. May, for the sign language interpretation. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your questions. Hopefully you are the ones who have to inform all of the people about the decisions of Cabinet. Minister, I see you.
So you remember I mentioned the athletes who we did not congratulate. I don't know why my team always omits the athletes, because sure, it's in the water. We need to start congratulating 17-year-old Anthony Clayton for winning the gold award and crowned World Junior Cross Triathlete Champion in Spain. And this is the lady I wanted to talk about. Prudence Ntshavheni, who won bronze in the 800-meter contest at the Diamond League in Stockholm, Sweden on the 15th of June, 2025. She also ran her new personal best of 1 hour 57. No, it's not. You got the time wrong. But she has won the 800 meters at the Ostrava Golden Spike in the Czech Republic on the 24th of June, 2025. She got the time right. Can you see she's not an athlete? Because I run, I know the times. You can't run 800 meters in an hour. They are quite quick, those times. So Prudence Ntshavheni for winning the 800 meters and also achieving or beating her own personal best record at the Ostrava Golden Spike in the Czech Republic on the 24th of June. We say halala to Prudence, halala. It's in the water, guys. I've just told the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture to say we are waiting for Amajita under 20, for the Team Protea, for all these athletes who have been doing wonders at the union buildings. And we just hope you guys will be there. And we don't want the spotlight to be diverted to any other thing, but just our athletes who continue to represent the country very well and make sure that they carry the flag very high, but also make sure that we remain a cohesive nation as we rally to support them. There was a question I had forgotten around the efforts to protect with the inclement weather, to protect the vulnerable communities. The responsible departments are hard at work to make sure that we protect those vulnerable communities against the inclement weather. But those efforts can only succeed with the cooperation of those communities. Because if we say you are living in low-lying areas, please move, and you don't want to move, there's nothing we can do. Because the media is going to take us again and say, no, we've been harassing people, we've been forcing people out. And if we say it's cold, but you cannot switch on, what do they call it, mbaula, I don't know what it is in English. It's a brazier. That it's going to, because of the carbon monoxide, it is dangerous. Let's find other ways of warming ourselves, or let's move to the municipality provided facilities or shelters. And people don't want to do it and they still continue. There's nothing we can do. So that's why we are urging the media to communicate this message for South Africans to cooperate, because we don't want to count the lives lost. We want to talk about the prosperity of South Africans. You must have the rest of the week. Enjoy it. And you must never forget that this freedom was not for free, and that there are people who envisioned a better South Africa. And today and this year, we celebrate a seminal and a foundational document to our democracy, to our constitution, to our freedom, the Freedom Charter. And happiest anniversary to the Freedom Charter. Thank you.
On that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Leandra. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, everybody. We can go and have our